So I'll start with a question. How many of you would like to make a difference with your life? Raise your hands. Very good. That's my favourite question. I want you to congratulate yourself for putting your hand up there, because they say you have to be willing to do the things that others won't do in order to have the things that others won't have. So that's why I want you to congratulate yourselves. I also want you to congratulate yourself for coming here today, because we can all probably think of somebody, at least one person, who could benefit from the information in this session and all the sessions of this week, but for whatever reason decided not to turn up. And that's fine, but that makes you different. Trust me on that. So I also want to stop for a second and ask you to give another round of applause to Matt and his team for organising this week and all the events. So a round of applause for them. I remember 7 years ago, I was sat in almost exactly the same seat you're sitting in now. I went to a talk like this by a local businessman who came into Hull Uni to talk about starting your own business. And going into that session, my thinking was, I'd like to make a difference with my life. I'd like to make it count for something. But the reality is, like Phil was saying, I'm probably just going to get a graduate job, buy a few nice things, and then that'll be it for me. When I came into this session, this guy came and talked about business in such a way that really, really opened my eyes. He talked about it in such a way that he showed the massive amount of variety in business. You can do it any way you want, in every which way, in any approach you want. And the major problem I had going into that session was, I thought, I don't know what I want to do. How many of you have ever been lost for a direction? Right? I was there, that's exactly where I was. I thought by the end of uni I should have it all figured out and have my career planned out. No, that's one of the reasons why I went to this session. But when he opened my eyes to this massive amount of variety that exists in business, I thought, whoa, even though I don't know what I want to do, given this infinite amount of variety, I'm going to find it in there somewhere, sure. So I went away and I started reading business books, reading biographies, talking to people who started their own business, and eventually set up my own company and made a bit of a go of it. But when it came to deciding what to talk to you about today, I thought, I'm not going to talk about the technical aspects of business because you've done a course on that, or you can read a book about accounting and all that kind of stuff. So how do I provide the most value in the least amount of time? And it came right back to success principles. Because I believe success principles is what you lay on top of your technical skills, and that's what makes the difference between success or failure in business. So people say, I want to start a software company. I'm an excellent computer programmer. I want to start a plumbing business because I'm a great plumber. Well, that's fine. There are lots of great plumbers out there. There's lots of great computer programmers. That alone is not enough to make the difference, success or failure in business. So it's the success principles that you lay on top of that that make the difference. So I thought, right, I'm going to share some of the success principles that I use in my business with you today, so that hopefully that's got some value for you. So I came up with the acronym W.O.R.K, W-O-R-K, and we're going to talk about 4 success principles. So W stands for wider vision. You have to get a wider vision of yourself, firstly. I remember when I was 15 years old, this day, I've been dreading this day my whole life. I got a letter turned up at my house, and it was from the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham. And the letter said simply, "Dear Chris, it's time to have your major surgery." Now, throughout all my life, from being born right up to that day, I was kind of pretending like this was never going to happen, but knowing full well, at some point during my teens, this letter was going to arrive. So anyway, I went in, and they kept me in for a couple of months. They did 3 major operations, each of which was 9 hours each, right? That was like a full working day in the operating theatre. And they couldn't operate for longer than that because it wasn't safe. They had to sew you up, let you heal up, and then bring you back out again. The funny thing about this story was that the speed of my recovery was baffling the doctors and the nurses that were treating me. So we literally went like this. They finished the op on the Monday morning, put me in the intensive care unit. By the Wednesday morning, I'd be well enough, and they moved me to the high dependency unit. And then by the Friday morning, I'd be back on the general ward with everybody else. And they're like, "How is he doing this? This is fairly rapid recovery to me." I didn't know what I was doing, not at the time anyway. And like Friday morning, I'm on the ward. Friday afternoon, I'm looking around trying to screw out of bed, going to the coffee machine. I'm going to sit in bed all day. And it wasn't until 10 years later, when I was 25, so I got into reading like business books and so on, that eventually led into a study of psychology, which is a favourite topic of mine. So 10 years later, when I was 25, I picked up this book, and it's called Psycho-Cybernetics, which I strongly recommend you get and read. This book is all about your identity and the vision you have of yourself. And this says that it's identity that drives everything about our behavior. If you get your identity right, it will power your belief systems, it will power your skills, your behavior, and ultimately impact your environment. So what was going on for me was that when I went into hospital, I'd just forgotten to remind myself that I was supposed to be ill. And I saw it in everybody else that was in the hospital. For me, I'd always seen myself as someone who was well, ably-bodied, and fit. And somehow my biology responded to that. And trust me, it was a fairly rapid recovery. So if you want to get into business to be successful, you have to get it into your head. Your identity has to be as an entrepreneur, as a successful business person. Otherwise, you risk self-sabotage. I believe this is where so many people go wrong, because they get into business without the mindset. So the science is all in this book. Get and read it. No matter what you end up doing, get and read this book. It's absolutely brilliant. So that's W, stands for wider vision. Get a wider vision of yourself so you don't self-sabotage. Now O stands for optimism. Phil talks about this. You have to become an optimist. How many of you worry about the future before it happens? Hands up. How many of you worry about the future before it happens, right? We've all done that. It happens all the time. How many of you enjoy the future before it happens? Not so common, right? Well, that's what being an optimist is all about. It's about enjoying the future before it happens. This reminds me of something else, I'll never forget this. Third year of my degree, and it was in my final exam here at home. And I had one of these light bulb moments. And it was, I finished the last squiggle on my last exam, and I put the pen down, and I walked out of the examination hall. And it was the moment that I stepped over the threshold out of the examination hall, and the light came on. It was at that moment I was like, my grade has just been decided. At that moment. Because all of the squiggles on the answer paper were now fixed. I also knew in an office somewhere there was another piece of paper that was the marking criteria. So whatever I'd written down compared to the marking criteria determined my grade. And that was a future outcome that was now decided. All it was going to take was for someone to take those two pieces of paper, put them on a desk side by side, and calculate the grade. But it was decided. And that was a future event. So the light bulb was, I've got a choice to make. I either spend the next few months leading up to results day, worrying about it and feeling bad, about an outcome which is now decided, or I spend those next 3 months, a valuable chunk of my life, enjoying that event before it happens, and feeling good. And that's what optimism is about. You say, wait a minute, Chris, wait a minute, wait. You say, what if that outcome is disappointing? What if it's not what I expected it to be? Well, that could well happen. The benefit of going into that with an optimistic mindset is that if it is disappointing, it's not going to stop you. If you've got a pessimistic mindset, you tend to give up and stop taking action. And that's why optimism is so powerful. If it's disappointing, you'll still be open to opportunities. You'll think, okay, that might mean I can't do X, Y, and Z, but you'll suddenly turn your attention to what you can do. There's all right, Grace, fine, you've sold it to me. I have to become an optimist. But surely isn't that something you're either born with or you're not? No. I've got another book recommendation for you. This book is called Learned Optimism. It's by a guy called Martin Seligman. Put it up for you. This will give you all the science, all the research, all the studies, all the stories you could possibly need to train your brain to think optimistically. It's a psychology classic, this one. Get and read it. No matter what you do, get and read this book. Change your life. So we had W, stood for wider vision. Get a wider vision of yourself. Make sure you don't self-sabotage. O was become an optimist. Enjoy the future before it happens and continue to take action no matter what. Now R stands for resolve. Resolve. The best definition of resolve I ever came across was promising yourself you'll never give up. Say, okay, so I've heard that a million times before, but I've got a different take on this. Stephen Covey has this concept he calls voice. He says you have to find your voice. And he describes voice as meeting 3 criteria, or joining 3 things together. And it's your talent, which is what you're naturally good at doing. When that meets with your passion, which is what you enjoy and love doing. And when that meets demand, or what the world needs. If you can combine these three things and start your own business, it is the best way of doing it. Something you're naturally good at doing, that you really enjoy doing, and that the world needs, and people will pay you for. If you can combine those three things, that's what Stephen Covey calls the voice. At that point, you won't need resolve. You won't need persistence anymore. You won't need to drag your bum out of bed in the morning with motivation. You'll be fulfilled. You won't have to worry about any of that stuff because you'll never work another day in your life. I found my voice in speaking. I love to speak. And I get paid for it. Can you believe that? It's a win because that's only two. Nobody said you're any good. We'll find that out during the evaluation. But find your voice is absolutely key. Now, K stands for Kaizen. K-A-I-Z-N. That's the Japanese business philosophy of continuous and never-ending improvement. It says, if it isn't perfect, keep working on it. And this, for me, it helped me let go of the idea of perfectionism. I realised that your business will never be finished. You'll never finish the jigsaw puzzle. Because that's what Kaizen is about. There's always room for improvement. So you can let go of the idea of getting to perfection and take your focus and put it on the process. So business is always a work in process. Always improving, always improving. And I see business very much like a journey across an ocean. And one of my favourite poems was written by a lady called Ella Wheeler Wilcox. And it says this: one ship sails east and another sails west, on the self-same winds that blow. And it is the set of the sails, and not the gales, that show us the way to go. It's like the winds of the seas or the waves of fate, as we journey along through life. And it is the set of the soul that decides its goal, and not the calm or the strife. And I thought that sums it up perfectly. That's why Jim Rohn used to say, the same wind blows on us all. The same wind blows on us all. The difference in arrival is not the blowing of the wind, but the set of the sail. What's the major economic wind that's blowing right now? Recession. The economic wind, but it blows on us all. And what do most businesses do in response to recession? Redundancy. They lay people off. They get them and they throw them out of the boat. And I feel for these people so much because job security is the number one fear. And I feel for them because I have absolute job security. When you're the captain of your own ship, when you've started your own business, you have absolute job security. If the marketplace changes, if your sales drop, if your income drops, you just move to a different part of the marketplace that is spending money and jolly on again. What was Phil talking about? The amount of times he changed his business model to change with the market. He has no problem with job security. You know, when everyone came into this room today, your sail would have been set in a particular direction. And what I hope the three of us have done is just to tweak that sail, even by just a couple of degrees, so that over time you'll go in a much better direction. I'll tell you what I really want. 5 to 10 years from now, I want someone in this room to write a letter to me. I want to go into my office one morning and I want a letter from one of you guys that sat on my desk. And I want it to say, Dear Chris, I came to your talk in March 2012, Business Success Through Work. I've taken the principles that you discussed in that day and I've used them in my life and my work. And now I'm happier and more successful than I ever thought I could be. And I just wanted to say thanks. Kind regards, your name. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Chris Coney's Calling. Thank you very much.